When I met you, or when you meet clients, what are some of the abilities that you have? Like, how are you able to tap in and say, well, I see this in your life? Like, how do you access that? What do you see? Like, what do you see about me right now, except my physical body?
Okay, so I would say obviously there's a longer story behind that, which probably not appropriate to go into right now, but I've always been what I call aware. So I believe that part of my purpose in this lifetime is to come into this physical body. I've obviously had many circuits, as I call it, around the life experiences in this particular density, this reality we call Earth, and obviously many others. I'm aware of myself in many other different realities, and I'm also aware that it's just it's just reconnecting with those aspects of ourself. So to put your question into what I do is I must have the ability, and I'm going to put it in this way, I must have the ability to be able to contact those parts of myself, and I use that word lightly, contact those parts of myself which reflect back to me that which I am. Then when I see that which I am, I observe it in another. So, for example, if I look at you right now, I see somebody who um, you're really learning about yourself. And this is why this interaction, for example, you want to know more about yourself through your capabilities, as we would call it. That calling is calling you to help and assist light workers or teachers or guides. And I feel that this interaction with myself, you will extend that into supporting more. So you've come with a specific mission in order to help humanity, if we want to put it in that way, through supporting others that are perhaps doing that work, because you're a brilliant host for it. It's something, you're being of service. Your gift to humanity is being of service and sharing that which also you're interested in. Of course, you have to be interested in what we're doing. If we're not interested in it, then it's like painting walls and just like, why am I painting walls?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, I resonate with that to a certain degree, and I'm definitely, my awareness has shot up in the last few months. I would say I am more perceptive of what's going on. And the way, when you were talking about, well, I see aspects of myself in different realities. I'd like to dive deeper into realities and dimensions because that really interests me. But what I was visualizing was mirrors. So you, in my view, you see yourself in mirrors looking at other aspects of humanity. And that's how you're able to tell people. And I mean, there's a high level of awareness that's required to do what you do. And that awareness is developed with experience, and using those experiences the right way. Because we can have the same experience again and again, be in cycles, and still not understand why we're having those experiences. But when you stop and observe and notice, and you take a breath really, and you look at those experiences and ask questions and become vulnerable and just sit back and say, well, why did this happen to me? It's okay. I'm going to let my guard down and I'm going to understand why this happened to me. And that's when the awareness really shoots up. And I feel like some of the tools that I'm here to teach are exactly those, like those practical tools of how you can take your awareness forward, right? So,
Yeah. Those mirrors that you talk about, Bhavna, is basically, I say to people all the time, and this is a really valid point, because everybody in the old paradigm, as I'm going to call it, would be classed as ego based, that circumstances I'm trying to compete with someone. But
Right.
when you get to that level of awareness where you realize it's only yourself that you're competing with,
Mm-hmm.
and what a wasted fight. If you're going to put your fists up and fight with yourself, I mean, it's crazy, because there's nothing there to fight against. So I love the way that you explained it as mirrors. And that's how, when I put my perception, as I call it, my awareness or my consciousness, which basically means that I'm aware of all my different, in my case, as I'm talking, in my different realities. So I see that as what probably I call as the oversoul, where the oversoul has created, it's a bridge in a sense, I guess you could call it, where it's the fourth dimension, and being aware of the fourth dimension and the higher, what I call the oversoul, where the oversoul has created these timelines, these mirrors, as you're describing it, and projecting that. So it's like being aware of yourself as the oversoul, in other words, the creator of this reality, of all realities, and all the timelines. So that's yourself, your family, myself, my family, all my friends, everyone on this planet, and literally a projection of the oversoul's timeline, where what we call being in consciousness of that running. Okay, so we're here in the physical with greater awareness of our soul self, which is the creator of all of it. And that's just one small level, if you want to call it that, of awareness. And it's not small, it's huge, actually.
It's huge. As you're talking about it, I just see like a big elephant, like a huge task. How do you eat an elephant, right? A
Yeah,
bite at a time.
absolutely.
And like in my view, like my greatest purpose, if you want to call it, but my greatest challenge in life is to find that best timeline that I possibly can in this life. How do I make my life align with that amazing, most amazing timeline, the greatest dimension possible, right?
Well,
So,
one of the things is you want to, and really, ultimately,
because,
where did that come from? Is, on some level, is what you're saying. How do I know that,
right,
I want that best life? Is it because of the experiences here that I've had that I'm asking for more, or is it that you've come in with that intention, and you're remembering it and remembering to ask? Because I think that's really important. So it's like
right.
that chicken and egg thing. What comes first,
Exactly. And just by noticing other people and where they've gone, it just shows me, just me or another person, it just shows us that this is possible. And all they are possibilities. And I feel timelines are infinite, infinite. So when I think of something, I've technically created a timeline. Is that true?
Um, so yes, basically, because anything that we can perceive from this reality already exists. What we're doing is we're flicking into, if you like, that timeline. And I like to say it's remembering. So on some level, there's something within you that is remembering that there is another timeline, for example. There is another way of living. So when we come from a place of, what you're saying is, I'm asking for that best, that one that's in, I say, in alignment with my highest divine path in this lifetime, then you can feel what I call, as I said before, the expansion of that. You can feel that, yes, I can resonate with that timeline. And once you start to resonate with it in whatever way, whether it's the something that triggers the intention or the asking, or whether we are awakening enough to be able to uh, remember the frequency. It's about remembering. We are remembering. This is
Absolutely.
really important. I get told this all the time by my divine self, is you're remembering. So you're all awakening to that remembering, that returning to the knowledge of all that you are. So
And once you remember that you're not here, this is not your limited self, and there's more, and you can expand into more, then everything around us seems kind of insignificant. Like the problems we have with relationships, politics, earth stuff, everything seems insignificant. And I think that's really crucial, just to know that there's more and this is not it. I think that's
It takes a
the
lot of hard
definition of
work.
hope, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's what you were saying before, because let's face it, there is a lot of hard work. You
Yeah.
said yourself, you were indicating some of the things that brought you to that point of, for example, when we connected. And it's not that we can't deal with the problems that we're having in life. There are so many different ways of dealing with it. But yes, when we get to that point of awareness that it can be better, that it doesn't have to be as difficult as it is or has been, then it's almost like you get pulled along with this
Right.
new energy. I call it new energy of like, oh, I'm more aware of myself, I've got more energy now. I know it doesn't have to be this way. And it just opens us up to more possibilities and yeah, more
Right.
awareness of ourselves, which
Absolutely.
is
Yeah.
phenomenal. To be fair, it's absolutely mind-blowing.
Yeah. And I feel like the focus needs to be internal to such an extent
Mm.
that we really go within ourselves and just forget about everything else for a bit. It is a lonely journey before it becomes a journey of togetherness. I feel like we have to find ourselves. We have to find that momentum, and that perspective and intention that you're talking about creates that momentum to go further, right? But if we've lost hope, if we've decided that this is it, there's no momentum there. It feels like a space of death almost.
Yeah, there's something. I mean, I can. When you were talking there, the first thing that came to my mind is I am not an astrologer. I'm really interested in it, always have been. But there was something in the like an introductory class that I'd studied with astrology. I was really fascinated, and what the tutor teacher had explained was that when you are born, you are in, or for a part of your life, you are in the self-exploration period,
Okay.
and then it turns away from learning about self and understanding self more to how then can I help others. So it's about more community, friendships, global humanity, things like
Mhm.
that. So regardless of that, astrology might say it's in your first X amount of years, I don't look at it like that, but it's a really good way of looking at life. So once we've found our purpose, our mission, that who am I, we then can turn our attention to being of service, as I call it, or who am I in relation to everything and everyone else. And that's when it gets really interesting.
And
If
exciting.
we're in a
Yeah.
stage where we're looking at ourselves, and certainly this has been for me, it was always I felt this draw to look at humanity and how can I be of service to humanity. But unfortunately, we learn the hard way if we're not self-focused first,
Yeah.
because it's that saying, the more you give to another, you love giving, but are you ready to receive? Can you receive? So I can put my hands up and say I'm guilty of no. I always, from my perspective, came into this reality, wanted to help humanity. And I think that has to get to a point where you suddenly realize that actually it was never about humanity. Humanity is you, it's always about yourself.
I love that.
And there's just one thing I need to add there is, because we live in this egocentric world when we're not sure of who we are, and we get caught up in whatever, we get caught up in the consumerism or other people's beliefs or patterns or whatever. And this is how we find our way out of that, is by literally coming back to the self. As you rightly say, there is no other way. If we do not go through the self and understand ourselves first, we will never be in a position to serve humanity or the rest of us, or do any of the work that we're doing. Because I mean, we can do it, but we never feel that fulfilled feeling where you're doing it out of
Beautiful.
love, out of unconditional love. And you know, we can, when people say, don't care if I don't get paid for it, because you've got to that point where you realize that it was never about the money, it was never about anyone else, it's not even really about yourself. But when you can understand that from a sense of self, then it changes everything. And that's what people are searching for. It's that, who am I really? And it isn't an easy journey, as we all know, but it can be, and it's getting easier.
Well, you're doing it, right? When
And
you
so are you,
with
and so is
people.
everyone, Bhavna. In their own way, everybody is doing this. And I think we give ourselves a really hard time and think we've got to be like someone else, or somebody looks at me or you and says, I want to be like these two, I want to be doing what they're doing. Great. If it's your purpose and your passion, then you will be. If it's
Absolutely.
not, then there's something else that is for you. But that's the frustrating thing, that as humans, we find, like, I don't know what it is and I need to know what it is now. And that's the other thing that we come to learn, is that in the right time, these things are always revealed to us when we have the intention, as you rightly said.
Absolutely. And I mean, that was so beautifully put. I mean, I couldn't have said it better, but that's exactly what, I've learned over the last little while is if we put too much focus on the outside, the external world, well, what is my self-image? It all comes down to that when we look at external. We lose the focus within. And if we're not helping people from first being whole within, you know, we aren't really helping them. All we're doing is creating another identity, another self image. And it's so important to help humanity after you've helped yourself, after
Yeah,
you've figured out who you are. So you're not giving away aspects of yourself. Because as you
yeah,
said before, isn't the journey just bringing those aspects back? So
yeah,
why would we make it tougher on ourselves?
yeah. One of the, this is what we do, though. We aspire to be like somebody else. Mistake number one: you are unique. You are totally unique. You may not know what your gifts are. You may say, I'm not as pretty as the next person, or as handsome as the next guy,
Absolutely.
or whatever. I mean, we all do it. We all compare ourselves. We literally are programmed that way. And there is a lot of programming, and those things are starting to change. That's something we'll talk about later, but
Mhm.
or another time. But certainly, we the thing that I say to people, the quickest way, because I've learned this myself, everything that we find, as you say, starts with self. When we find it, doesn't mean that it's going to be the same for someone else. It could, but something within our finding ourselves will enable someone else to go, well, there's some elements of that that fit with me, but there are other elements that don't. Now that takes a great deal of courage, doesn't it, to say they're not
Absolutely.
wrong, there's nothing about what
Yes.
they're saying or what they're doing, but it's not the path for me. And that is, I love the word self-empowerment, or those words, self-empowerment, because
I love
then
that.
suddenly it's like, I'm not comparing myself to others, I recognize my uniqueness. And one of the big things that I say to people is, you have to accept all the parts of yourself. If you're not willing to, let's say I have some jealousy going on, I've looked at some stunning woman and I think, God, why wasn't I born like that? We all think these thoughts,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
do we express them? Do we follow them through? Do we then say, okay, so there's something within me that doesn't feel entirely happy with the choice that I have made, in that's empowering, I'm choosing it. I'm saying that I am the creator of my reality. I am choosing, I didn't come in to be the most beautiful woman on earth this time. Maybe I will next time, but I'll let that go, because right now I am me. So what's my unique qualities?
Right.
And I think it's when if we can say, well, I'm not as beautiful as I want to be, and then there's that feeling of I'm not good enough, or I'm never going to be that beautiful, and I'm going to go and have surgery or whatever. There's nothing wrong with doing things, but more importantly, wouldn't it be better to say, but what is my unique qualities? It's not that, obviously. I'm not going to be the model on the on the top magazine or
I think
whatever right
it's
now. but what's my unique qualities? And
Right.
that's a really good question to ask yourself.
I love that because what you're talking about is that next step in the ascension process, right? Like the first step is, well, who am I? You know, the next step is, well, okay, what are my triggers? Because you're talking about triggers. And what do they show me about me? For example, if you're open enough, you know, if you're open enough to understanding why I'm jealous of that person X who has long, beautiful hair, you know, why, what is it in me that makes me jealous of that person? And why don't I feel fulfilled with my hair?
Mm.
You know, when you really ask those questions, that's the next step because that's when your higher self, or I guess you call that oversoul, brings you those answers.
Exactly. And the interesting thing there is that when you ask that question, it then says, well, this is the way it is. On some level, this is it. But am I really happy with that decision? Is it that I can, what you were indicating and saying before is, if I'm the creator of my own reality, then is it possible that I can change that? And as an example, funny enough, obviously, you're spot on, the hair thing. I've always had what I consider to be very fine, thin hair.
I'm with
It's just the
you.
way it is. I have jokes, and anyone who knows me really well, I say, gosh, I'm going to come back in a next lifetime as a Latina or something with beautiful, long, dark hair. I probably
Yeah,
will. But
yeah.
so I have, and then I said to myself one day, look, it is what it is. You chose it on some level. You do have a ability to be able to change that if you so wish.
Hmm.
And what I mean by that is I'm never going to have that hair that I'm talking about. It's a reality that I accept because how important is it? But the point I'm making here is that we have the ability to say, well, actually, I have really thick hair. And I'm not joking. Within a very short time of me saying that, and then thinking, yeah, I do have really thick hair. People were saying to me, gosh, your hair looks really thicker these days. What are you doing to it?
There you go.
So
Yeah.
this is it. We are influencers of our own reality, of
Oh,
course.
I love that. I love that you said that because the level of influence that's happening on social media, we can't even begin to express how rudimentary that is. What you described with the hair, it's funny because I actually dreamt of a big bald spot on my head last night, and that's why I brought up the hair. But that's because I've been losing hair and you know all of that, and now it's coming back. So I guess I'm through my dream state, I'm releasing my fears of hair loss, which is related to our self-image. And you know, at whatever level we're at as healers, communicators, whatever, we all have these insecurities. And it's okay to have them, and it's okay to recognize we have them and admire something about somebody else and say, I wish I had that quality. And like you said, it somehow becomes you, right? So
Right.
such an
And why
amazing
I'm
journey.
why I'm laughing, I'm so sorry, but this for anybody that doesn't understand frequency and connection, this is a perfect example. We have only spoken since we've connected here today.
Yeah.
You had a dream last night. You bring up that we were talking about attraction, and I am talking the same thing. So what my point is, and I think this is really important to think about here, is we are aware of ourselves on many different levels. You in dream state, our connection here today, this consciousness that we are attuned into, let's just say, and it's happening here right now in this situation. So this is where I feel, how important is it that we're aware of ourselves and being able to laugh about
Exactly.
it and see the connections, see
That's
how it's
it.
everything is interweaved, everything is connected.
Yes.
And because this is where people talk about and they say law of attraction, if you are thinking negative thoughts, you're going to attract them back in. Well, actually, in reality, yes, that is kind of true. And people fight and want to know, I got to master this, I got to be positive thinking and all this, that, and the other. But what we're saying here is, look, just look at the connections, and then smile about it, or laugh about it, or talk about it, or just, yeah.
Absolutely. And you know what? I think we can save that topic because you just brought it up, the positive thinking. I have a lot to say on that. I'm sure you do too. And we can save that for next time because that's a big one. People really struggle with how do I I'm depressed. How do I bring myself to think positive thoughts? It's not possible. We can't just come up with positive thoughts. There's work involved. And that's where you and I come into the picture, right? Like, we are
Yeah,
the bridge. We'll take you from point A to point B, but tell you, hey, not my journey, it's your journey. And we'll
yes.
tell you how to do it. We'll share our experience, but you're going to come back and say, well, I also found out this for myself. It's an
Yay.
individual journey, right? But yeah, this has been such an amazing conversation. And exciting and fun, and it's let's talk about frequencies and positive thinking and everything in between. So
Yes.
Jessica, we'll end this here, and we'll continue this conversation next time.
Yeah, no limits. Looking forward to it. How
Absolutely
exciting.
unlimited, yes.
Love it too. So much fun. Thank you.